Rewind the gunshot means forward. Resident, so where you at?
Greetings, YouTube. Align Unleashed back at you from right here at the Green Thumb Gardening Channel, right here in the Grow Zone AB in Tifton, Georgia. And in today's video, YouTube, we're going to be attempting to add a new variety of fig to our current selection of fig trees that we have here at the Green Thumb Gardening Channel. Most of you guys know we have currently here at the Green Thumb Gardening Channel at least 20, maybe 25 successfully propagated Celeste fig trees that we recently propagated. Well, here recently we received a new variety of fig tree, and it's called Tauro. We received that from one of our subscribers out in California. And today we're going to attempt to actually propagate two of those cuttings. And we're going to show you guys exactly what those cuttings look like at this point. And also we're going to be planting about 5 golden apple seeds that we put in our refrigerator to stratify about 3 months ago and totally forgot about them. YouTube, I'm going to go ahead and get those 5 golden apple seeds planted today also. But hang tight, I'm going to flip this camera around for you guys right now and show you what those 2 Tauro fig tree cuttings currently look like, YouTube. Hang tight. Alright, YouTube, we're back. And again, these 2 fig tree cuttings here are the 2 fig tree cuttings that we're going to be attempting to propagate here today. As you can see, there's some fairly decent sized cuttings here. This variety again is known as Tauro. If you guys know anything about the Tauro fig, it's an Italian variety of fig, and it's known for producing huge figs that can weigh up to 300 grams each, YouTube. So again, we're going to attempt to propagate 2 of these cuttings. We received a total of 4 of these cuttings in the mail. We're going to try to attempt to propagate 2 of these cuttings. I'm going to show you guys how we go about doing that. Here we have our 5 golden apple seeds in this bag here that we put in our refrigerator again roughly 3 months ago. I'm going to go ahead and get these things in some soil also and show you guys how we go about doing that. But here we have our favorite variety of rooting hormone that we're going to use to try to propagate these 2 fig tree cuttings. We have our trusty Scuttles garden shears here. We have our garden gloves here, YouTube. We're going to get outside right now on our preparation table, get everything out there, get our tripod set up, and show you how we go about getting this thing taken care of, YouTube. Hang tight. Alright, YouTube, we're back. The first thing we're going to do, YouTube, is start by preparing our cuttings for propagation. We're simply going to use our handy Scuttles garden shears for this step, YouTube. What we're simply going to do here is score our fig tree cuttings along the areas where roots are most likely to develop here, YouTube. That's going to be everywhere there's a growth node or a notch, growth notch there along the cutting, YouTube. This cutting is roughly 8 inches long. So what we're going to do is try to bury at least these first 2 to 3 growth nodes here beneath the soil, and allow about this much to remain above the soil and for our new growth to develop from, YouTube. So again, it's a very simple process. I'm simply going to take my handy Scuttles garden shears here, YouTube, and score our fig tree cuttings along those growth nodes there where again roots are most likely to develop. Nothing fancy, nothing scientific about this process at all, YouTube. Again, simply going to score our fig tree cutting along those first 2 to 3 growth nodes here, YouTube. And let's see how much depth we have there. Yeah, we can bury those first 3 growth nodes beneath the soil. So we'll go ahead and score this one also, YouTube. Again, very simple process, nothing scientific or about it at all, YouTube. Now we have our first cutting prepared, YouTube, and scored along all of those growth nodes. I'm simply going to dip it in this glass of water we have over here and allow it to sit as we prepare our next cutting. We're going to do the same thing with this particular cutting here, YouTube. Simply score it along those growth nodes. I know a lot of you guys have seen on propagation videos when people receive fig tree cuttings in the mail or they purchase fig tree cuttings, they make a fresh cut along the bottom. We won't be doing that, YouTube. We believe here that making that fresh cut along the bottom kind of opens your cutting up to disease and root and possible disease and rot and possibly fungus and mold, etc. So we won't be cutting that, making a new cut along this the bottom of this particular cutting, YouTube. We'll simply be scoring it again along these growth nodes where we think that new roots are most likely to appear from. Again, very simple process, nothing fancy at all about it, YouTube. And again, we're just using the cutting blade on our handy Scuttles garden shears to make those scores on our cuttings here, YouTube. Now we'll have our cuttings soaking in this glass of water, YouTube. Our next step is going to be to fill our 2 containers with our garden soil. I'm going to swing this camera around for you guys right now and show you what we're going to use. You guys see that? Now I'm going to flip it up for you right quick and show you what we're going to use for these particular cuttings. It's called Stay Green. It's a potting mix by Stay Green. And of course, Stay Green is a product of Pennington. If you guys didn't, a product of Pennington. If you guys didn't know that, YouTube. At any rate, YouTube, we're simply going to take our 2 containers here. Use our trusty Scuttles garden short shovel here and fill our 2 containers with this potting mix. Nothing fancy at all about this process, YouTube. Again, rooting any type of fig tree cuttings should be a simple and easy process for anybody due to the fact that fig tree cuttings root so easily. You don't have to be an expert or gardener or anything like that to successfully root fig tree cuttings, YouTube. They really do the majority of the work for you. Right, we have our first pot filled there, YouTube. Do that same thing with the second pot. Get that soil kind of shaken down and tamped down in there a little bit. Add a tiny bit more soil to this pot. All right. Now that we have both of our containers filled with soil and ready for the next step, YouTube, I'm going to swing this camera back around for you guys and show you what we have going on over here. All right, guys, as you can see, we have our 2 pots over here filled with our 2 containers filled with our soil over here, YouTube. We're going to give that soil a slight pressing down here on the top, just to make sure it's well settled in these containers. Again, it doesn't have to be well packed or anything like that, because you want the roots of your cuttings to be able to actually spread out in this soil, so you don't want it super compacted. As you can see, YouTube, this soil is fairly moist. So once we place these cuttings in this soil, we won't, YouTube, we will not be watering these cuttings in at all. Most of you guys who propagated fig tree cuttings in the past know that they don't require a tremendous amount of moisture or water during the propagation process. In fact, too much water, too much moisture will indeed cause the stem of these cuttings and any developing roots to rot. So you don't want excess water or moisture in your soil when you're attempting to root these cuttings. At any rate, YouTube, we're going to go ahead and remove our cuttings from the water now. Shake that excess water away from these cuttings. We don't need that excess moisture on our cuttings. Sit them there now. What we want to do next, YouTube, is take our favorite brand of rooting hormone YouTube and apply it to our cuttings. Again, I'm going to try to move as much excess moisture from these cuttings as possible. I'm simply going to get these cuttings down in this hormone here and shake them around a bit, YouTube. Try to get all of those areas that I scored along those growth nodes covered with this rooting hormone. Any excess will simply tap back down into this container, YouTube. You don't want a cake of this rooting hormone on your cuttings. As you can see, I removed all of that excess rooting hormone, YouTube. Now what I'm going to simply do, YouTube, is take my trusty Scuttles garden shovel and make a hole in the center of this pot, YouTube. Again, very easy and simple process. We're going to take our cutting, YouTube, and get it down into this soil all the way up to that third growth node right there, YouTube. We're going to make sure we got enough space down in our soil here. Again, we'll get our cutting into its new home, YouTube. And press that down in there a bit. Now we'll simply collapse that soil back around our cutting. Get our cutting oriented as straight up as we possibly can, YouTube. Tamp that soil around it generously. And again, YouTube, we will not be adding more water to our containers at all. Our soil is, again, very moist, so adding water is definitely not necessary. Repeat that same process with our second cutting here, YouTube. Try to get as many of those growth nodes as possible that we scored coated in this rooting hormone. And on another note, YouTube, rooting hormone is not necessary. You do not have to have rooting hormone. It does increase the chances of successfully rooting cuttings of any type, but you do not have to have rooting hormone in order to root fig tree cuttings. It's not necessary, YouTube. Our very first cutting that we rooted here at the Green Thumb Garden channel, we weren't even using rooting hormone at that time, and it worked out tremendously well for us. Again, remove that excess rooting hormone from our cutting, YouTube. Do the same thing. Take our handy Scuttles garden shovel and attempt to make a hole in the center of our pot here, YouTube. Large enough for our cutting to fit down in, and deep enough. And then we'll simply take our cutting, place it in that hole, press it down a bit, and press our soil in around it. Just that simple, YouTube. Again, rooting fig tree cuttings is a very fairly simple process, YouTube, under the right grow conditions. Virtually anyone can do it. I know you guys have seen 1,000,001 fig tree propagation videos in the past, and this is another one. Our next and final step here, YouTube, is to take our 1-gallon plastic bags that we have here on our table and place one of these plastic bags over each of our containers, YouTube. We have 1-gallon Ziploc style plastic bags here, YouTube. We're going to take one of our plastic bags and place over each of these containers, and we'll bring you guys right back and show you what they look like with the plastic bags over our containers. Hang tight, YouTube. All right, YouTube, we're back, and this is what our 2 Tauro fig tree cuttings that we're attempting to propagate currently look like in their new pots, YouTube. Take a look at this. Bam! You see that, YouTube? We have our 2 1-gallon containers with our 2 Tauro fig tree cuttings in them, covered with our 1-gallon Ziploc plastic type bags, YouTube. That's going to allow plenty of light to get in to our containers here, but it's also going to lock in all of the moisture that's currently in that soil, YouTube. Again, as you can see, our soil is the same consistency. We did not add any water to our containers due to the fact that our soil is already so moist, YouTube. We're going to let our 2 cuttings sit up here in these 2 bags here while we go ahead and get our apple tree seeds planted up, YouTube. I'm going to show you guys at the end of this video exactly how much moisture has built up in these bags during this short period of time while we get our apple tree seeds planted, YouTube. Hang tight. Alright, YouTube, we're back. As you can see, we have our 2 1-gallon containers prepared and filled with the soil mixture that we're going to use to plant our 5 golden apple seeds that we've been stratifying in our refrigerator for so long that we almost forgot about them, YouTube. At any rate, YouTube, the first step that we're going to take in planting these seeds is we're going to remove this little brown husk that's on these seeds. You guys might not be able to see it in the video, but there is indeed a brown husk that's on the outer surface of these seeds, YouTube. We're going to remove that brown husk. Then I'm going to show you what those seeds look like with that brown husk removed. Hang tight. Alright, YouTube, we're back. And indeed, YouTube, that seed on the left-hand side is the seed that I removed the husk from. As you can see, it looks a lot darker than the seed on the right-hand side. This is the husk that we removed from that seed, YouTube. And the purpose of us removing that husk is this seed will indeed germinate with the husk on it, but it'll indeed germinate a lot faster having that husk removed, YouTube. So that was our purpose of removing that husk. We'll do the same thing with our remaining 4 seeds, YouTube. We're going to bring you guys back when we get that done and ready for the actual process of planting our seeds. Hang tight. Alright, YouTube, we're back, and as you can see, we have our 5 golden apple seeds laid out on the top of our 2 containers that we're going to plant these seeds in, YouTube. Our next step is going to be to make 5 small holes in our soil using our little handy tool here, YouTube. And then what we're going to do, YouTube, is plant our seeds with the pointy end facing down. Hang tight. Make a small hole here, YouTube. Make another small hole here on this side of this pot. I get that big log out of there first. Now, YouTube, we're going to take our seeds and as you can see, our seeds have a pointy end and a fat end, YouTube. We'll take our seeds and place them in our holes with that pointy end facing down. The pointy end facing down. We'll press our seeds down into our holes here, YouTube. Gently cover them up. And these, YouTube, since we will not be covering our containers with any type of plastic bag or anything to retain moisture, these seeds we will indeed water in. Do that same thing here. Make a few small holes. We want to make these holes about a ½ inch deep, YouTube. Again, taking our seeds, placing them in our holes with that pointy end facing down. Take our tool and press them down into that soil, YouTube. Again, our holes are only about 1/2 inch deep. Gonna give our seeds a light dusting in of soil. Try to remove any larger debris which may prevent our seeds from emerging from the soil when it germinates. Tamp that down slightly, YouTube. Now, next step will indeed, as I told you guys earlier, be to give our seeds a little tidy drizzle of water. Again, our soil is already moist here, so we won't be drowning these seeds by any means. Just enough water to settle that soil around our seeds. And there you have it, YouTube. Have our golden apple seeds that we've been stratifying for pretty much ever finally planted here, YouTube. I'm gonna go ahead and make a notation on these pots of what they are here, so we'll know what they are if they do indeed germinate for us here, YouTube. Do that same thing on this pot over here. Today is indeed January the 10th. So we're going to put 011021 on all of these pots. And as you can see, YouTube, I'm not quite sure if the camera is doing it, our plastic bags back here any justice, YouTube, but moisture and condensation has already built up in these bags back here, YouTube. And that's one of the primary reasons why we didn't add any water to our containers here. I'm gonna date our Tauro fig containers also, YouTube. And we'll bring you guys back, YouTube, indeed, at the very first sign of successful propagation with our Tauro fig tree cuttings. And also we'll bring you guys back at the very first sign of seed germination with our golden apples that we've again been stratifying for 3 months at least, YouTube. At any rate, YouTube, thanks for watching this video on fig tree propagation. And if you currently are watching this video on fig tree propagation and you're not already subscribed to the Green Thumbs Gardening channel, please indeed take this moment to press that subscribe button beneath this video, that like button, that notification button, and be sure, YouTube, be sure to share this video with your friends and family as well. Yeah. Propagating Tauro figs right here at the Green Thumb Gardening channel. Grow Zone 8B in Tifton, Georgia. Thanks for watching.
Rewind the gunshot means forward. Requested it, so when we watch.
Call it loose, city loose, stay. I'm unleashed, rap king of the streets, ripping up another beat, and I still don't play. I flow smooth in my lyrics on time. All my haters in the crowd, it's loud, but I leave them all quiet when I say what's on my mind. I ain't fell off, I won't stop. There is a diff on the corner of the top until my very last breath. I'm gonna give it all I got. Red eye, thinking late night flights. Won't stop and tell us that I'm touching down in Cali, destination in the valley, and I'm feeling alright. I'm elevated, I'm a product of the sun. On top status, I'm a flowing apparatus. Got my haters talking chatter, but I still get it done. Everywhere I go, I still see pros. On the beat, see I'm walking down the street, high heels on their feet, almost wearing no clothes. I'm making money selling records overseas. All in Ghana, I'll be smoking marijuana. You can find me down under, even in the Philippines. Like I lay on my line, I'm the greatest. I'm top notch. I can see outside the box, I'm making haters stop and watch because they know that I done made it.
Rewind the gunshot means forward. Requested it, so
Looking for me, you can find me in my lane. I stand tall, but I keep my circle small. Don't let them lawyers get involved whenever I profit off my name. I'm full grown, I'm a lion in my prime. Treat my design, I mean the way I spit around. I'm about to make the haters feel me like I did the last time. Deep breath and I'ma drop another verse. No competition for this lion on a mission. If you want it, come and get it. I'ma hit you where it hurts. You need a minute, let my words marinate. It's been a minute, I didn't mean to make you wait. I'm about to rip it straight to shreds and I ain't gonna hesitate.